As dads, some days we feel like we have all the answers, and some days we feel like we don't have a clue. If that describes you, you're at the right place. This is the All Pro Dad Podcast. Hey, welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast. My name is Ted Lowe, and I'm your host. And each week here on the All Pro Dad Podcast, we take a look at just one question. We talk about what the experts say. We talk about what we've gotten right occasionally, mostly what we've gotten wrong. But we always leave you with one pro move. It's simple, but helpful. Today, I'm joined by my buddy, Mr. Bobby Lewis.
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah. This is an interesting topic, and I hope you teach me a little bit of something too, because you're the emotions man, right? You're learning it all.
Well, I am learning, and that's what this episode is about. Talking about how do we help our kids feel and deal with their emotions. And Bobby, I got to be honest with you. I started a marriage book about, 4 or 5 months ago about emotions. And I remember thinking, if I'd have seen this type of episode, like how do I help my kids feel and deal with emotions? This is how bad it was. I think I would have looked at that and went, oh, these people, they don't want their kids to be strong. This is a touchy-feely. I think I had just a different sense of what that meant. And maybe that's just a generational thing.
Sure.
But as I've dove into it, it's just, wow, this is profound, right? Like our kids' emotions, it impacts everything, right?
Yeah. It's interesting to me. I've got 3 kids, and you got 4 kids, and it's just, they're all different. And that means their mannerisms are different, their language is different, their emotions are different. And if you treat them all the same way, you're not going to get the exact same results. So I've learned as my kids have gotten older that emotions are not to be afraid of, but you got to deal with them with each kid in the right way. Right.
There's Dr. Joshua Straub. He's a buddy of mine, but he's just recently written this incredible book about helping kids deal with emotions. We'll put it in the show notes. But he talks about helping our kids when it comes to emotions, striking this balance of support and challenge.
Yeah.
Like it's about, hey, I'm coming alongside of you. I'm here for you, but also going to challenge that your emotions are not in control of you. And I think that's why a lot of times as dads, we try to squash those emotions because we don't want our kids to be led by emotions, because emotions are changing all the time. Plus, no one taught us how to, so we can't teach our kids something that we didn't learn. Where were you taught about growing up, Bobby, about emotions?
It was an interesting mix. It depends on where I was and who I was with. But I think I grew up, late 80s, early 90s, and a phrase that I heard quite a bit was kids are seen and not heard. From lots of different people. And I don't know if that was just an era of life, if that was a parenting strategy that was popular at the time, but it was almost as if like, hey, I know maybe you're feeling angry, maybe you're feeling upset right now, but please don't embarrass me in public with your emotions. And that's at least how it felt to me. It's like, well, how am I supposed to express myself as a kid? I'm feeling all these things, but just like a balloon, if you puff it up, and you don't ever let the helium out, it's just going to pop and explode. And that's how maybe little kids feel inside. I know it was for me. And I wasn't like a super emotional kid. I was a pretty even keel. I never
like you are now. Yep.
Yeah, I've never really gotten too high or too low. I'm not going to sit and write an angry letter to a politician. That's not me. I'm not going to do that. I'm never going to go curse someone out in the parking lot at the grocery store. I just don't get too high, but I also don't get too low. And I think there can be benefits to that as a parent when you're trying to coach your kids through their emotions. Right. But I think where I have struggled as a parent so far is the feeling the emotions with my kids. I can help them deal with them.
Right.
I feel like I can do that pretty well, but it's feeling it with them. I got to get better at that.
Yeah. And I think about the same thing. Like you said, depending on who you're with, right?
Yeah.
So kids are with adults all day. So some teachers, every teacher's going to be different.
Coach, all that, yeah.
Right. I feel like with mine, it's like when my mom was alive, she passed away when I was 10. She would worry a lot about everything. She was very overprotective. And during this time, a worrying mom, it might as well have been an extra badge of honor. Like you get 2 corsages on Mother's Day at church because you worry because you care so much. You care more. And what I got told a lot is don't worry your mom. Well, boys, that's our job, is to worry our moms, right? And I had an older brother. And so I felt kind of responsible to keep her calm a little bit. And then she passed away. And so then it was like free for all with emotions. Yeah. And there wasn't anybody going, hey, you need to calm down. And so I think my dad's approach, and again, no slam on my dad, nobody taught him. I think the approach towards me on that was just let him do what he's going to do, because my dad is real even killed, and my emotions go up and go down. And as a kid, they were really big emotions. Yeah. So I would watch him just let him play out.
Yeah. Just to let him play different than your dad then?
Oh, 100%. He would be just, because I was the kid that threw tantrums, and I was the kid that would get mad. And so I'd get mad and be demonstrative about that. And think my dad, I mean, he would have his limits, but it was just, I didn't know what to do with the loss of my mom. I didn't know what to do a lot of things.
When I was a young dad, the thing that I tried to avoid the most was the kid meltdown in the store. Because
why is that?
Everybody turns and looks, right? Like you're at the grocery store and you're on aisle 2 and your 2-year-old, you've just told them, no, you can't have the candy or whatever. And they lose their mind. All 2-year-olds do it because they're 2 and they want what they want when they want it.
Absolutely.
And so you being the parent saying, not right now, we're not going to have that. When the kid loses his or her mind, and they will, because all kids do, I was the one who was tempted to just give in, because I did not want the kid losing his mind, and every mom in the store turning going, you gonna do something about this? Like, your kid's screaming and crying. And
let me pause you, because you just said, don't embarrass me, is what you were taught.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I don't know if that bled into me as a parent as I got older, but I've noticed in the 10 years since that point, I don't care at all anymore. I don't care. Now, my kids aren't 2 anymore,
right?
But it's not that I don't care about them. It's that I don't care to intervene in their emotional outburst, because it's a natural thing. It's okay. If you're upset, like, it's fine that you're upset. I don't want to stifle your feelings just so I feel better about myself, or just so this person I'll never see again in my life turns and gives me a dirty look. I care much more about my kid than I care about that lady on aisle 2. But I also want my kids to feel like, even if you're mad at me, even if you're super frustrated, I don't want you to feel like you can never say it out loud, or you can never express yourself to me. We can maybe decide when's the best time to do that, and we can talk through those things. Maybe right there in the moment on aisle 2 is not the best place for you to be having this meltdown. But I don't ever want them to think the meltdown's not possible because dad doesn't care about the meltdown.
That's good. That's good. I think for dads listening right now to go, what's the ultimate payoff? Like, why would we want to help kids feel and deal with their emotions? Is because they don't dissipate. They don't just go away. They're going to come out some way. And if it's not a healthy way, for lack of a better word, it's going to come out sideways in their adult relationships. I mean, we've all talked about that in this episode, all the team that's here today. Just, wow, most of us weren't taught. But just from a long-term thing of not only helping kids relationally, the research even about what it does for work is incredible. I saw this interesting study from Google, and they're talking about the hiring process. I thought this was fascinating. So they're testing the hiring process to see if it was working, and what they were hiring was STEM skills, right? Which is what? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which is what we're all taught.
Sure.
And that's just what they were using as a gauge to hire. And what they found out is the most effective teams were not the ones that had ranked the highest in hard skills. The most productive teams, the ones that were producing the best outcomes, were the ones, here were the top 3 skills. Bobby, you're not going to believe this. Number 1 was emotional safety. Number 2 was empathy. And number 3 was emotional intelligence. And the most important thing that Google found was, we got to hire people that are emotionally intelligent. And so when we think about our kids and their future, it's just so important. So how do we do this? How do we help our kids? How do we make this super, super practical?
I want to get good at this as a dad because, not because I want them to just behave in the grocery store.
Right.
I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I want her to be able to feel and deal with her emotions because to her own benefit. Like, she needs to be able to do this, and it's for her internally, but also externally. Someday she's going to be a mom. Someday she's going to be a wife. And so if she is not able to figure out her emotions now, and I'm not able to help her do that now, it's going to, be a stain on a marriage, a stain on a mother-daughter or a mother-son relationship. And I don't want that for her. I care about her emotions today, but I also care about her emotions down the road. So that means I got to work today.
Right. And that she is emotionally healthy to pick someone who's emotionally healthy.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
They start gravitating towards who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting. If there's dads watching or dads listening, I'm sure you probably have kids who are totally different than you. Some kids that are very similar to you. But I've noticed with my own kids that I can't parent them in a blanket way. My oldest daughter shoves feelings down, and they build and they build and they build and they build and they build, and then boom, they pop. Right. My son, who's 9, you know exactly what he's feeling, exactly when he's feeling it, and you're going to know it loud and clear. He's very out there. And then, and just very open with his emotions. And my youngest child, she is probably, you notice when the volume goes up, the emotions go up. Like she just gets louder and louder and louder, which is fine, but they all get different tactics. They all get different approaches, and we'll get into kind of how to let them feel it and deal it properly.
Absolutely. And I think just for so many reasons, our kids are all different. And I don't think there's any one size fits all, but I do think there's some principles that we can say, regardless of personality, here's where we're headed towards. I saw this great analogy the other day. We were to think about our kids walking outside in the backyard. And let's say there's 12 benches that represent their emotions, whether it's sadness or happiness or peace or excitement, whatever those things are, fear, that they will be sitting on those benches. Our job is to go sit beside them. I'm supporting you, because what we tend to do as dads, especially when we do this in marriage, is we try to yank them out of that emotion. If it's negative, quote unquote, we're trying to yank them instead of just coming alongside of them. So I think it's the difference where a kid's angry and we jump straight to behavior. Stop it. Don't act like that. Don't do like that.
Yeah.
But there's so much power in empathy and questions.
Yeah.
Hey, bud, I can tell you're really frustrated with your brother right now. What's going on? That's different than stop it.
Yeah.
That's different, or it's sad. Hey, I can tell you're sad. Tell me what this is about.
We had a situation at our house. I think I told you this the other day with my youngest child. She's 5, and she wanted ice cream. And she decided she wanted ice cream at 10 a.m. And so I'm working.
Like you do.
Yeah, well, I would love also ice cream at 10 a.m. And apparently I was busy. I was doing a work call. My wife was there, and she basically, you shouldn't yell at my daughter, but she scolded her and says, no, you can't do that, and didn't explain why. And so I heard the crying. I heard all this stuff going on. So I went over to my 5-year-old and I said, hey, let's go for a walk. Because I could tell my wife was kind of frazzled at this point. There was a lot of contentious, back and forth. So I took my daughter on a walk, and I realized she was mad because she felt like she was being punished unfairly, not because ice cream's bad at 10 a.m., because no one had ever told her ice cream was bad at 10 a.m. I just kind of assumed she knew. And it's not that it's bad. It's just, that's not what we do. Ice cream's after dinner. My wife and I knew this. We'd never communicated that to her. And so when we went on a walk, I quickly realized, oh man, she doesn't feel like she did something wrong. She feels like she was punished wrongly for something she didn't know was wrong. And she was just so sad. And so, because she didn't realize what was going on. So when I sat and asked those questions and I just listened to her, I was able to figure out that we messed up as mom and dad. Right. And so we went back and said, listen, sweetie, I know that you wanted the ice cream. Next time, ask permission. Right? Ask if we can get ice cream. And if mommy and daddy say not right now, that doesn't mean no, not forever. It just means not right now. And my wife actually said, because you had ice cream now, we're going to take it away. You can't have it tonight after dinner, even though we had planned on having ice cream after dinner. And she was just dejected. And we went back and edited, and we said, you know what? Mommy and daddy didn't really communicate this very well, and we didn't listen to you. You can have the ice cream back at 10. So we all had ice cream again at night, and it was a nice little, moment. But I think the communication is very important because had we not stopped to ask her, why are you really feeling this way? Why are you still crying 10 minutes later? We would have just assumed she was upset because she didn't get her way. But what she actually was upset about is that she felt like we weren't being fair. That's a totally different reaction,
Well, and that takes a little extra work on your part. I love the word you just used. We had to edit.
We did. Yeah.
I think that
which takes some humility as a dad sometimes.
It does. Well, it communicates to your kid, I don't always get it right. Mm-hmm. And you want them to grow up to be adults who say, I don't always get it right. And I love that you took the time to dig down and say, hey, what's really happening? Yeah. And then not being afraid to say, oh, this was kind of on us not communicating this, or you didn't understand this, that's a better lesson all day long than stop.
Yeah.
Like, just don't do that.
And I think half the time with kids, it's not that they don't deal with their emotions well. I think really a big problem with kids is they don't know how to communicate it very well.
Right.
We have these adult understandings of emotions. 5-year-old doesn't think the way I do. Well, I sometimes do. I don't know. But like our kids, why would we expect them to understand frustration, being overwhelmed, anxiety? Why would we expect them to feel those complex emotions the same way we do? They don't know. They just think, I'm angry and I don't know why I'm angry. And it's really not just surface level umbrella anger. It's frustration or it's depression or whatever it is. And you have to like dig down deeper. We have a tool on imom.com. We can link it down at the bottom. We're going to do one for all pro dad. It's just the feel wheel, and it helps kids actually pinpoint exactly what they're feeling. Not just I'm happy, but I'm overjoyed, or not just I'm scared, I'm actually nervous, or those sort of deeper emotions. They can't articulate it the way we can. And when we actually take the time to stop and drill down to the pinpoint bullseye problem, then we can approach it a little bit more accurately with precision instead of just a sweeping broad brush.
No, it's really good. I've realized, Bobby, through this whole book writing process, the gap for me has been identification of emotions. Like, I think that was the frustration as a kid. I didn't know what I was feeling, so everything went to the emotion that I knew, which was anger.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to go somewhere. Yeah. And so it would drift towards anger, and it would drift toward that because I didn't know. And so one of the things that I'm learning through this whole thing is, everybody's different, and I don't like to make stereotypes, but the research is pretty compelling that when it comes, there's a difference between girls and boys.
Yeah.
Girls tend to have, and again, sweeping generalization, but still it's got relevance. Girls have a bigger emotional vocabulary, less ability to regulate. Boys have a lesser vocabulary, but a little bit better to regulate. And so they said the number one thing that we can help boys do is to identify their feelings. And the number one thing that we can help girls do is to regulate that. Yeah. And so the examples for the girl, and I thought this was huge. If you have a little girl whose emotions are always at a 10, or that you ask scale questions. Because if she may say, I'm sad or I'm frustrated because she's got a bigger vocabulary, we stop and say, okay, on a scale to 1 to 10,
helpful, yeah,
how are you doing? And with boys, and this is what I didn't learn, and I'm still working on, man. And I'm telling you, if you're a guy right now going, I don't know what I'm feeling, or I have two feelings, I'm a feeler. We all have emotions.
Yeah.
And so if you don't, you're talking about the feeling wheel. I'm just telling you, and I'm going to telling myself as I am busting that out right now at my age to go, what
20-something kids too.
Yeah. And just to look on this and say, oh, I think I'm really sad right now. I think I'm really frustrated right now. But it's so powerful to help our kids to stop, because what you said is so huge. You took the time, and that walk, she was probably calmer.
She was. Oh, yeah. We left the actual physical house where all the tension was. We went out of the house, and we were just walking by ourselves in the sun. We walked to the stop sign at the end of the street, had a little chat, turned around and came back. It was maybe 3 minutes, but powerful 3 minutes, because she was totally separated from what was bothering her. She was free to think.
She's out of the emotional part of her brain. She's now in the logical part.
Yeah.
You're talking about coping after the incident.
Yeah.
You don't talk about, hey, what were you feeling in the grocery store when they're crying? They can't hear their emotional part of the brain. So I love what you modeled there, is to go, hey, let's talk about what's going on. She felt understood. Well, here's what sounds like she knew what she was feeling.
Do the same thing with my son too. He plays hockey, loves it. And occasionally he'll make a mistake. And it happens. He'll play games on Saturday. So Saturday you make a mistake. The other team scores a goal. I feel bad about myself. I messed up, let the team down. I never say anything about it on the ride home. Never. the next Friday on the way to practice, I'll say, hey, buddy, remember last week's game? Like, do you remember that? What happened? He's so far removed from it that he's calmed down. He's no longer in the car steaming because he made a mistake. He knows he messed up. You don't have to tell him, you know? You don't have to remind him that he messed up, and he's already feeling it. But you put space in between the emotion and the lesson, and the lesson sticks a little better. At least that's what we've noticed.
That's so good, Bobby. Absolutely.
And one thing I've actually adopted in our marriage, and now I've let it filter down with our kids, is my wife, someone who has dealt with anxiety, and she tells people this all the time, so she wouldn't mind me saying it. But one thing I told her is, do not apologize for how you feel. Never. Like, feelings are natural. And so I say that to my kids too. You don't have to apologize for how you feel. Now, we can deal with it together, but don't ever feel bad about how you're feeling. Feelings are natural. Do you have a guess? I looked it up. Do you know how many times a day you blink?
How many?
Up to 20,000 times a day. It's like 1,200 times a minute. Like it's an incredible, or an hour, 1,200 times an hour. And if I said, hey, don't blink, you would think I was crazy. Like, I can't not blink. It's a natural thing. It just happens. But if we were to say don't blink, you'd be like, well, actually, there's a lot of benefits to blinking. It cleans your eyes. It keeps your eyes moist. You know, it kind of, actually, there's interesting research that when you close your eyes, even for that brief second when you blink, it gives your brain a break. And all those times you blink throughout the day, it's giving your brain a reset and a break. If I were to tell you don't blink, you'd look at me like you were crazy. Same thing should happen if we look at our kids and say, don't be sad. They can't help being sad. Like, the circumstances dictate I'm sad. I scraped my knee. I fell down. The dog ran away. Whatever. Like, you know, like, there's all these things that cause kids to be sad. And for you to tell them don't feel what you're feeling is the same thing as if you said don't blink. It's ridiculous. Your body naturally does these things because God gave it the ability to regulate, and emotions help the kids regulate. And so I want to remember that just in my own parenting is, man, let them feel it, but don't let them deal with it on their own. Stand there with them, like you said, on the bench. Sit with them on these benches and let them talk. Let them cry it out. Let them yell it out, whatever they got to do, and then hold their hand and get through it.
Yeah, I think, Bobby, that's just so key, is to say to our kids, hey, all feelings are welcomed here, like natural, because there's a little bit, I was growing up, it was really big, that it's okay for boys to be mad but not sad, and girls could be sad but not mad. And I think that doesn't make any sense, because, you know, if you don't think boys can be sad, hold a boy baby who's upset. They're going to be sad. But when I think about my own kids and how this has played itself out over the years, and just taking this pause, and my daughter, bless her heart, she's almost 20, and she's like, Dad, you can say whatever you want if it would help people. So her name's Teddy, and I just thank her for her transparency. But I remember she would take a shower. She's probably in 4th, 5th grade. And she would take showers, and they would just go on forever. And so we're like, oh, she's just losing track of time. We put up an alarm clock and said, hey, when this goes off, your shower's done. And she'd get real upset about all that. And then one day, when everything was calm, not right after the shower, I said, hey, talk to me. What's going on? Like, what's going on in the shower? Are you playing with toys? Like, she goes, well, I wash my hands. I'm sorry, I wash my hair, and then my hands feel dirty, and so I have to wash them. But she goes back and forth. I went, she's describing OCD. It's this perfect OCD. And so we realized right then, in that calm moment, to go, wow, this is what this is. But it took the calm for me to find that out. And this is where I would say to somebody who's got a child, if you're seeing something like that, if you hear something like that, what we're talking about is probably more neurotypical behaviors that, but for some of us, your kid's really emotional, you're being really supportive, but you're seeing, don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah. And that doesn't have to necessarily be a counselor. We're huge fans of counselors, but I think we have to be open to that. Yeah. And the great thing is I feel like, you know, with all 4 of my kids who've struggled a little bit more probably than most, and we've had to work through, they have a pretty amazing vocabulary when it comes to it. Like, you know, our little dog of 15 years just died. And so last night. And so that's fresh. And so our whole family is sending each other photos. I bet you right now there's 75 photos. We're all talking, crying on the phone this morning, and my 24-year-old went home and helped his mom with the whole situation. It was tough. Yeah. He just texted me. He goes, "Dad, don't be afraid to ask for a break today."
Yeah, that's great.
And I was like, that a boy, taking care of your dad, like to go, but also knowing self-care of that.
Yeah.
You know, to say, hey man, don't forget to take care of yourself today. So that pain, that emotional pain can often, it equals growth a lot of times.
Yeah.
So they have the vocabulary for sure.
I love when you were telling that story about the shower. I love that you actually sat your daughter down after the fact, removed from the shower, and you're like, hey, let me ask you a couple questions. Because like questions give you information. The more you know about your kids, the more you can diagnose and the more you can treat. And when you go to the doctor and you're like, hey, my knee hurts, he doesn't say, great.
Right.
He says, oh, okay, well, which part of your knee? Is it a bone? Is it a ligament? Is it a muscle? Like the more information you give, the more the doctor can help diagnose the problem and help you get to the next steps. Asking your kids exactly how they feel. What made you feel that way? Who was around? How long have you been feeling that way? All these sort of questions give you as a dad more data that you can apply to the diagnosis and then help your kids through it. That's what you did when your daughter was spending all the time in the shower. You asked a couple of questions. Now we know. We can move on. Questions. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. They probably want to talk about it. Give them the opportunity to talk about it.
I think this whole podcast, not just this episode, all of them, is to feel like we're sitting around with a group of dads and we're learning from each other.
Yeah.
And so, Bobby, I'm just struck by, you talked about your real even keel and calm. And I have to be really careful not to match their emotion with the same emotion. But I think what I've learned from you, and I'm sitting here going, I think that even keelness, when it comes to emotions, is a great gift to bring to a kid. To go, my emotions that are going up and down, they don't make dads go up and down. That makes you feel safe. Talk about that word a lot. This is my safe dad that I can talk to about this. He's not going to match my emotion, which makes them more scared. So I think that's great, Bobby.
You tend to share information with people that you trust.
Yeah.
And I want my kids to trust me.
And calm dads are safe dads.
Absolutely. And so if my kids are getting really high, maybe I can just pull them back down a little bit. If they're really low, I can maybe pull them back up a little bit. But I don't want them to be ruled by their emotions. Yes, they're natural. Yes, they're normal. But I don't want them to be so far into their emotions that they can't regulate. And so I think that is a little bit of a strength of mine, just to be able to be even keel through a lot of those things. And I want them to also know that I care much more about how you feel than my comfort. Like for the example we gave in aisle 2 of the grocery store, I care a lot more about what you're feeling than people looking at me and thinking this is a bad dad. They don't know this child. They don't know me. They don't know our situation. I know everything about this child and I want them to thrive. And so I care much more about helping you through this moment than I care about the lady picking out mac and cheese on the aisle next to me. I
love that. Just constantly saying it's okay to feel this, One of the greatest pieces of advice we ever were getting when it comes to emotions with our son that was shyer. He was shyer. Shyer word, Bobby?
Could be.
Shyer?
Yeah, it's where
our son who was
hobbits live there.
A little more shy. And so when people would speak to him, probably 3 or 4, he would growl at him a little bit, like hit, he still does. Like he'll growl at you, Bobby. No,
nice.
He's incredible. But we were asking a friend, like, what do we do? She said, you just say, hey, buddy, it's okay to be shy, but it's not okay to be nasty.
Yeah.
And so it's just those moments, just gentle, just gently saying to them. But I think just what we're saying here is be safe, calm, dad.
Reassure them it's okay. It's okay to feel it, whatever it is. Last story, the other day, my daughter, it's like 8:00 at night, 13-year-old, and she came crying in the room. I was like, what in the world? Why are you so upset? She was upset and she was holding it in all day long because at like 9:00 in the morning, her brother came in to wake her up and she wasn't ready to get up and she's like, groggy, and punched him. And at 8 p.m., 12 hours later, whatever it was, she came in and said, I think I'm a violent person. I said, no, sweetie, you're not. You were half asleep. It's okay. But she had stewed on that all day long. And I said, don't hold that in. Like, come tell dad right away if you're feeling these things, because I can reassure you, you're not a violent person. You were groggy, and that's a regular thing you're too. Groggy. So be there for your kids. Be calm, be even with them, reassure them. They'll trust you more, and then they'll want to tell you more.
That's great. So we could talk about this for a long time because emotions impact every aspect of everything. But as we look at our pro move of the week, and we've talked about a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We talked about safety. We've talked about helping them find their feelings, helping them, scale to 1 to 10 what you're feeling. But I think maybe just one simple thing you can do this week, the pro move of the week, is to ask your kid, how are you feeling about blank? If there's something you're watching going, I don't understand their reaction to baseball, what's happening there. I don't understand what's happening when the friend comes over. It's just, they're nice and calm.
Yep.
And you go, hey, how are you feeling about blank? And then let them talk, validate what they're feeling. Don't fix it. Practice this not fixing thing and just let them know that you're with them. It's a powerful thing when we do.
For sure.
And it's way easier than trying to talk them out of their emotions, which, by the way, is impossible.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Almost as impossible of trying to convince our spouse to not feel what they're feeling. But anyway, well, you guys, thank you so much. Could you do us a favor and go rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast platform? If you want to know more tips and tricks, of course, you can go to allprodad.com, or you can go on to our LinkedIn pages because we're very LinkedIn
very much
to the world. You'll find that in the show notes. And you'll also find in the show notes everything we've talked about today, the couple of books we've talked about. Hey, but mostly we want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. We know that you and your kids will be glad that you did. Thanks for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the All Pro Dad Play of the Day, by going to allprodad.com/subscribe and get daily powerful and practical fatherhood tips in your inbox. The All Pro Dad podcast is hosted by me, Ted Lowe, produced by Bobby Lewis.